I'm Iris Howe in for Steve Lance tonight. Faking jobs numbers. That's what President Trump is accusing the chief of labor statistics of doing as he orders the firing of the Biden appointee. But Democrats say the move is unjustified. President Trump on Friday says he's firing Erica McEntaffer, who was appointed back in 2014 by President Biden to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And President Trump is now accusing McEntaffer of faking jobs numbers, and that's after a weaker than expected jobs report was released today. He's further accusing her and the Bureau of manipulating numbers for political reasons, citing two major upward revisions made back in August and September of last year before the election. Here's what President Trump told reporters tonight. Watch.
If you look at before the election, the same kind of thing happened. And I think you'll see some very interesting information come out. But you have to have honest reports. And when you look at those numbers, or when you look at just before the election, and then after the election, they corrected it by 800,000 or 900,000 jobs, yeah, I would say so.
New data released today shows that the U.S. economy added 73,000 jobs in July, which is a downturn from major job numbers released in the past 2 months. Meanwhile, also revised the jobs numbers for the previous 2 months in May as well as June, bring the numbers down by over 250,000 jobs in total. The White House is dismissing concerns and saying that the loss of jobs mainly stems from, for example, a reduction in the number of foreign-born workers as a result of stronger immigration policies.
Since the president took office, of over 1 million foreign-born jobs, whereas American jobs have replaced those. That decline in foreign-born jobs, creating jobs for American workers, is ultimately going to show up in some sense in the economic data. And
But Democrats are now criticizing President Trump for his move of firing the labor statistics chief. Here's Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer speaking on the floor today.
What does a bad leader do when they get bad news? Shoot the messenger. That's just what happened with the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
The labor secretary, though, is defending the president and hailing his move today. She says that a recent string of major revisions by the department is raising concern about the decisions made by the Biden appointee. She further adds that Trump's move is to ensure that our numbers, especially when it comes to jobs, are accurate, fair, as well as not manipulated for political reasons. President Trump says he's ordering 2 nuclear submarines to be repositioned in case of Russian aggression. This after the chairman of Russia's Security Council spoke of a possible war with the U.S. NDD's international correspondent Arian Pastor has the Russia update.
A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
President Trump is preparing for possible Russian aggression. On Friday, Trump posted, "I ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions." He added that words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. "I hope this will not be one of those instances." Trump was referring to recent statements by former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who responded to Trump's 10-day deadline to end the Ukraine war. Medvedev, who is now the chairman of Russia's Security Council, said each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Trump says he'll put more sanctions on Russia if no deal is made by Friday of next week, and impose up to 100% secondary tariffs on any country doing business with Russia. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin didn't have much to say about the increase in pressure.
Negotiations are always in demand and always important, especially if it is a desire for peace. In general, I view the negotiations positively.
Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS, will begin to wind down its operations. It comes after President Trump launched a successful campaign to claw back the $1.1 billion allocated for the organization for the next 2 years. And Congress has now excluded funding for the CPB from the budget for the first time in more than 5 decades. The private nonprofit corporation was authorized by Congress back in 1967. It distributes funds to more than 1,500 locally managed and operated public television and radio stations nationwide. CPP president and CEO said, quote, "We now face the difficult reality of closing our operations. Most staff positions will conclude at the end of next month, and final operations will shut down by January 2026. The Senate will be working past its scheduled August 1st recess to address a backlog of nominations. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has the details.
Are important jobs in the government that are currently standing empty 8 months now into this president's term because Democrats have dragged out the confirmation process and denied President Trump the courtesy that Republicans and Democrats alike in the past have extended to previous presidents.
The Senate was supposed to go on recess this Friday, but there is a backlog of over 150 civilian nominees pending confirmation in the Senate's calendar. At the rate the Senate is confirming this administration's civilian nominees, there will be potentially hundreds of them that won't even get to their jobs by the end of President Trump's term in office.
This isn't sustainable. We can't keep on this track, Mr. President. This has got to change. And it will change. Either Democrats are going to play ball or we're going to figure out a way to change it.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune is considering changing the Senate rules to allow for a simple majority to confirm these nominations or to vote on a package of nominations bundled together.
The Democrats learned nothing from the November election. They lost at the ballot box. They have lost on the floor of the House and the Senate. They are losing in the courts, and they feel like they've got one thing left, and that is obstruction.
By this time during President George W. Bush's first presidency, the Senate had confirmed 192 civilian nominees by unanimous consent or voice vote. By this time in Obama's first term, some 209 civilian nominees were confirmed by unanimous consent or voice vote. Thus far, Trump has had 0 nominees confirmed this way during his second term.
They have forced us to burn valuable floor time during which we might have taken up other important bipartisan matters.
The Senate will at least work through the weekend to vote on nominations and appropriations.
The Senate Appropriations Committee has so far passed 6 bipartisan appropriations bills, and Republicans are ready to consider a package of appropriations bills and have a floor process. And there have been some encouraging signs that some of my Democrat colleagues are ready to come to the table on this.
There are some 1,200 executive nominations that require Senate confirmation. Some have suggested that these are too many for Congress to manage and also attend to its other duties. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
In the Middle East, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff takes a first-hand look at a humanitarian situation in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel's top general says they will learn about a hostage deal in the coming days. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
Footage released by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, showed residents in the Gaza Strip waving to the camera as they waited to collect food. The GHF, which is supported by the U.S. and Israel, said they recently designated women-only aid distribution sites for women and children to be able to collect the aid. And on Friday, the GHF said they had delivered 100 million meals to residents. And present at the occasion inside the Gaza Strip were U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Witkoff said they spent over 5 hours inside the Gaza Strip to gather facts on the ground and meet with the GHF and other agencies. He said the purpose of the visit was to give President Trump, quote, a clear understanding of the humanitarian situation and help craft a plan to deliver food and medical aid to the people of Gaza. Huckabee reposted a screenshot of a United Nations website that tracks the UN's aid deliveries to the Gaza Strip. And the UN's tracking information showed that over 80% of the aid they have tried to deliver inside the Gaza Strip since May has been intercepted, quote, either peacefully by hungry people or forcefully by armed actors. Meanwhile, President Trump on Thursday said the U.S. had given $60 million to help get food into the territory.
And we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food.
Multiple countries continue to transport humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip as well. On Friday, Germany, France, and Spain joined the list of countries who recently began airdropping aid into the territory. Spain said they also brought 13 Palestinian children from the Gaza Strip to Spanish hospitals for urgent medical treatment. Since the war began, Israel said they had helped over 38,000 Gazans, 80% of them children, along with their escorts to receive medical treatment in other countries. And in another development, Israel's chief of the general staff said he thinks they'll know in the coming days whether a deal to free the hostages will be reached. And he said, quote, "If not, the combat will continue without rest." And on the same day, sirens sounded across Israel as the country reported intercepting another missile fired from Yemen. The Houthi terrorist group in Yemen has been firing missiles at Israel, saying it's in support of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell is now in custody in a minimum security federal prison in Texas. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for child sex trafficking and other offenses. She was moved to Camp Bryant from Florida. Last week, she met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tallahassee over 2 days. Then she makes significant demands, including immunity for potential testimony to Congress. Relatives of alleged victims of Maxwell and Epstein reacted with what they called outrage to Maxwell's move. The presidential fitness test is now coming back to public schools, and parents and students are they on board with the decision? NTD Sam Wong was out in a national mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
Do you remember what it was like back in the days when presidential fitness test was very much in place?
I actually grew up in Canada. It was kind of a competition amongst classmates, so I think it was similar down here in the States. So I honestly don't mind it.
They had like a couple of variations of what you could do. How many chin-ups can you do? Can you do a pullover?
Did you make it to the top 15%?
I don't think so. Did you ever get the award?
No, I didn't, but I remember the tests were very diverse, so there were lots of different ways for kids in some ways to succeed in some ways and not in others.
I remember getting the Presidential Fitness Award 2 years in a row, signed by Ronald Reagan back then. And it meant nothing to me then, means nothing to me now, because it does not impact the quality of education that these children are receiving.
President Trump has reinstated the presidential fitness test. What are your thoughts on it? Against or pro?
Kind of both. I'm all for fitness. I think that health, especially among kids, is something that we need to focus on. But also, it gave me a lot of anxiety when I was in school.
That's pretty cool. To kind of work and strive for that would be pretty fun, actually.
You're excited for it?
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Rather have my child educated equitably and properly than wonder how many pull-ups or push-ups he can do in a minute.
Ultimately, it's on mom and dad and the family to make sure your kids are getting the exercise, but a national standard, maybe that'll help elevate. We all know that obesity and those types of things are an issue, so I think it's a good thing.
I definitely try to be on the more athletic side myself, but you know, some people aren't always like that, and I think you know, a little bit of a push would help for sure.
And a little bit of push-ups.
No, just a push in the right direction, but some push-ups would definitely help. Yeah.
How many can you do?
I have no idea. Probably around 25, something like that.
For one thing, let's not kid ourselves. Kids are a little fat and weak. not talking to you. And you know, just at least we'll know where we're at.
Do you think there should be a certain requirement in PE class for every kid to pass? Like, do you think there should be a threshold?
Yes.
And tell us why.
Because everybody needs to exercise.
Do you want a presidential fitness award?
Yes.